The galaxy was changing. The Clear Dominion, once considered unstoppable, had retreated from key sectors. Their fleets were scattered, their communications disrupted, and their aura of invincibility shattered. Humanity had achieved something that countless older civilizations had failed to do. They had forced the Clear to respect, fear, and ultimately reconsider their dominance. On the bridge of the Aurora, Admiral Selena Voss watched reports stream in from all fronts. Human fleets had maintained coordinated strikes, defended key colonies, and inspired allied species to rise against the Dominion. Every victory had been hard-earned, yet the lessons learned had strengthened humanity's resolve. Lieutenant Marco Diaz turned to Voss. "They're pulling back. The Clear are reorganizing. They'll return, but they know they can't underestimate us anymore." Voss nodded. "Exactly. Humanity has proven that we are not to be dismissed. Our strength is not in sheer numbers, it is in our adaptability, ingenuity, and courage. Every move we made taught the Clear a lesson they won't forget." Meanwhile, Ambassador Adrian Hale addressed the Galactic Council once more. The chamber was quiet, filled with delegates who had once doubted humanity. Their expressions reflected a mix of astonishment and respect. The humans had shown that even a young, relatively small species could influence galactic events through determination, clever strategy, and resilience. Hale's voice echoed through the dome. "Humanity has faced impossible odds and emerged stronger. We did not seek war, but we will defend ourselves and our allies with every resource at our disposal. Our actions are a message. Freedom is worth fighting for. Courage is a force beyond measure, and determination can change the course of history." Some delegates whispered among themselves. Worlds long oppressed by the Clear began to consider alliances with Earth. Others took note of human ingenuity, realizing that intelligence and creativity could sometimes outweigh brute force. Even older established civilizations saw lessons in the humans' approach. Resilience and innovation were powers in themselves. Across battle-scarred sectors, human fleets had achieved something remarkable. They had forced the Clear to retreat, not through reckless attacks or sheer might, but by exploiting unpredictability, creative tactics, and rapid adaptation. Each human ship, pilot, and strategist had contributed to a victory defined not by destruction alone, but by turning the tide of morale and influence across the galaxy. Captain Lyra Chen, returning from a final strike against a Clear forward base, breathed a sigh of relief as her squadron docked. "We did it," she said quietly, glancing at the battered but resilient human ships around her. "We survived, adapted, and we've shown them who we are." The human historian aboard the Aurora recorded the events carefully. This is the moment humanity began to be seen, not as a minor world, but as a species capable of shaping galactic history. These victories, small and large, demonstrate that courage and creativity are as important as firepower in war. Back on Earth, citizens celebrated cautiously. The battles were not over, but humanity had endured its first major engagement against the most feared empire in the galaxy. Schools, workplaces, and families watched reports with pride. Humanity had proven its courage, intelligence, and resilience, sending a message to every species. Earth was no longer a world to underestimate. The Clear Dominion, retreating to regroup, had no illusions about the humans' capabilities. Even their commanders, once confident of their empire's superiority, now recognized a truth they could not deny. Humans were clever, adaptable, and unpredictable. Their strategies had disrupted entire fleets, forced retreats, and inspired rebellions across controlled sectors. In distant colonies, alien species whispered of hope. Rebellions that had seemed impossible now dared to plan action, inspired by Earth's example. Humanity had become a symbol, a spark igniting courage and resistance across the galaxy. The war was far from over, but the psychological victory had already been won. Hale returned to the council chamber, standing tall before delegates who had once doubted him. "Our battles are not simply about survival. They are about proving that courage, innovation, and determination can change even the most entrenched systems. Humanity fights not just for Earth, but for all who value freedom and the right to shape their destiny." The council listened intently. Some species nodded in agreement, while others exchanged astonished glances. The humans' achievements had shifted perspectives across the galaxy. Their ingenuity, Adaptability and spirit could no longer be ignored. On the battlefield, human engineers and scientists continued to innovate. Damaged ships were repaired quickly, and new tactics were developed daily. The humans' ability to learn from each encounter and apply lessons in real time had become a hallmark of their strategy. Every setback became an opportunity, every challenge a chance to demonstrate creativity and resilience. Even small victories had lasting effects. Jaden Reeve, celebrated for his daring solo strike weeks earlier, now trained new pilots, emphasizing the importance of adaptability and courage. "We fight smart, we fight together, and we never give up," he told his squadron. Every move counts, and every human has the power to change the outcome. Meanwhile, Earth's leaders coordinated with newly inspired allies across the galaxy. Worlds long oppressed by the Claire began to join the cause, forming coalitions to resist Dominion influence. Humanity's bold actions had created not just a military advantage, but a network of hope and cooperation. Admiral Voss addressed the fleet one final time. "We have faced our greatest challenge and emerged stronger. Remember this feeling: courage, intelligence, and unity have carried us through. The Clear may return, but they will never underestimate humanity again. Our ingenuity is our shield, and our spirit is our sword." Across Earth, celebrations were tempered with respect for the losses endured. Families mourned, but the knowledge that their world had survived and triumphed gave them strength. Humanity had faced one of the galaxy's most formidable powers, and emerged not just alive, but stronger, wiser, and more confident. In the council chamber, Orithak spoke once more, his voice reverberating through the crystal dome. "Humanity has proven that strength is not measured by size or age, but by courage, determination, and adaptability. Your species has taught the galaxy that even the young and underestimated can shape history." Hale listened quietly, a small smile on his face. Humanity's journey had only begun, but the first chapters had been written in courage, ingenuity, and resilience. The galaxy would never see Earth in the same way again. From orbital stations to distant battlefronts, humans continued to innovate, train, and inspire. Every sector touched by their presence now recognized a simple truth: humans were clever, resilient, and unafraid to act when others hesitated. Their victories were proof that determination and creativity could overcome even overwhelming odds. As night fell over Earth, lights sparkled across cities, spaceports, and orbiting stations. Humanity had survived, adapted, and triumphed. The galaxy had witnessed a young species rise, not through brute force alone, but through ingenuity, courage, and an unbreakable spirit. The Clear Dominion, retreating and regrouping, had learned a lesson they would not forget. The humans of Earth were unpredictable, inventive, and fearless. Their resolve had shifted the balance of perception across the galaxy. The age of underestimating humanity was over. In quiet moments, Hale reflected on the journey so far. From the first declaration to decisive battles and strategic victories, humanity had demonstrated the qualities that defined them: intelligence, courage, resilience, and unity. Every step forward had been a message to the galaxy. Humans were not to be underestimated, and their spirit was a force that could not be contained. The galaxy, once dismissive of Earth, now recognized the potential of this young species. Human ingenuity, determination, and unyielding spirit had reshaped expectations, inspired hope, and proved that even the smallest and youngest civilizations could make a lasting impact. And so, humanity's first major campaign against the Claire Dominion ended, not with the destruction of the enemy, but with a resounding demonstration of strength through innovation, courage, and adaptability. The galaxy had been forever changed, Earth had survived, humanity had triumphed, and the future, though uncertain, was now theirs to shape, guided by the qualities that made them unique: determination, ingenuity, and the unbreakable human spirit. The spark of defiance had grown into a blaze, illuminating the galaxy and reminding every species that courage, intelligence, and resilience could change the course of history. Humanity had risen, not by chance, but by choice, by action, and by the relentless belief that even the smallest species could make a difference. And in that realization, the galaxy understood a fundamental truth: humanity was extraordinary, and the story of Earth's defiance would inspire generations to come. The halls of the Galactic Council shimmered with lights that reflected off polished surfaces, casting long, shifting shadows across the chamber. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of worlds had gathered, their voices a constant hum of discussion, argument, and debate. Some argued over trade, others over borders, and many more over ancient rivalries that had persisted for millennia. In the center of it all stood Earth's ambassador, Captain Alara Voss, a human whose presence carried a quiet strength that many of the older species found unsettling. Humans were still newcomers in galactic politics, yet their persistence and ingenuity had earned them a reputation that few could ignore. For decades, humanity had served the Council with unwavering dedication. Their engineers had repaired countless starships for alien fleets. Their scientists had cured diseases that threatened entire worlds, and their diplomats had mediated disputes between species that had never spoken without anger. Despite these accomplishments, humans were often overlooked. Their proposals were dismissed, their warnings ignored, and their opinions treated as minor inconveniences in decisions that affected billions of lives. Today was different. Today, humanity would no longer stand silently. The issue at hand was a small, outlying colony on a remote planet called Sarathis. Its population was modest but growing, filled with scientists, traders, and families eager to create a life far from the crowded worlds of the inner galaxy. Sarathis had fallen under attack from a neighboring faction, one that had no regard for treaties or the rules of war. The humans on Sarathis had sent multiple pleas to the Council for protection, but the decision-makers were too focused on politics, commerce, and influence. They had voted overwhelmingly to leave the colony to its fate. Ilara's voice rang out across the chamber, cutting through the murmurs and objections. "This is not just about a distant world," she said, her tone calm but firm. "This is about principle. If we abandon Sarathis, we send a message that life is expendable when it does not suit the interests of the powerful. We cannot claim to be a council of justice while leaving the helpless to die." A representative from the Zandari collective, a species known for their sharp claws and sharper tongues, snorted. "Humans," it hissed, "you speak of justice, yet you are too weak to enforce it. Why should we risk resources for your sentimental ideals?" Ilara did not flinch. "Because it is the right thing to do. Because no civilization should be judged by its wealth or strength, but by its compassion and courage. Humanity may be young in this council, but we will not compromise our values for fear of inconvenience." The chamber erupted into debate. Some representatives applauded, moved by Ilara's words, while others whispered among themselves, dismissing humans as naive. The council's chair, a towering being named Thalrin of the Orand, attempted to restore order. "Ambassador Voss," he said, his voice deep and resonant, "the decision has been made. Your objection is noted, but the council will not change its course. Sarathis will receive no assistance." Ilara's expression hardened. She had expected resistance, but she had not expected complacency. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her shoulders. "Then I must announce that Earth will no longer recognize the Council's authority over our actions. We will not comply with decisions that endanger lives without cause. We will leave this chamber and we will leave this Council." A stunned silence followed. Some members froze, unable to comprehend that a human, one of the youngest and smallest species in the Council, was threatening such defiance. Others whispered rapidly, questioning whether Earth had the resources, the fleet, or the influence to survive on its own. But there were also curious glances from the fringe delegates, the traders, nomads, and smaller civilizations who had long felt ignored. They saw in humanity a courage that they themselves had rarely witnessed. Ilara turned, signaling to the human delegation behind her. Slowly, in an almost ceremonial movement, the humans rose. They gathered their belongings and left the chamber with quiet dignity. The doors closed behind them with a resonant clang that echoed through the hall. The council trembled, not physically but in spirit. For the first time in centuries, a member had walked away, not out of weakness but out of unwavering principle. Outside the council's halls, Earth's capital on Luna Prime was alive with anticipation. News feeds across every planet and station displayed images of Ambassador Voss's declaration. Citizens of Earth crowded around screens, their faces reflecting awe, pride, and determination. Humanity had always been strong in adversity, but now they faced a challenge unlike any before. The galaxy was vast, and leaving the Council meant navigating uncharted political waters while ensuring the safety of countless human and allied colonies. In the weeks that followed, Earth's leaders acted swiftly. Starship fleets were mobilized, not for war but for protection and aid. Communications were sent to every remote colony, assuring them that humanity would not abandon them. Engineers and medical teams were dispatched to worlds that had been neglected by the Council for generations. Where others saw obstacles, humans saw opportunities to prove their worth not through dominance but through action. Many in the galaxy watched in disbelief. How could a species so young, so small compared to the empires and coalitions that had ruled the stars for millennia, stand up to a council that wielded unimaginable power? Yet every act of humanity, the repair of a failing starship, the evacuation of a threatened settlement, the delivery of food and medicine, spread a simple but profound message. Humans did not negotiate morality. They lived it. Among humanity's own people, the mood was electric but cautious. Soldiers, scientists, diplomats, and civilians alike understood the risks. Leaving the Council would not make them enemies everywhere, but it would make them exceptions. Allies who had once relied on the Council's protection would now rely on Earth itself. It was a burden heavier than any starship they had ever built. Yet for the first time, humanity felt the full measure of its potential. They were no longer passive participants in galactic politics. They were active shapers of the future. Alara walked along the observation deck of the flagship Aurora, staring out at the countless stars that stretched across the void. Each one represented a possibility, a challenge, and a life to protect. She remembered the faces of the colonists on Sarathis. Their hope mingled with fear. Humanity had promised them safety, and humans never broke their promises. Not now, not ever. A transmission came in from a small, unaligned species known as the Karathi. "We have watched your actions," said their leader. "Your defiance inspires more than fear, it gives hope. If you will accept our aid, we will join your coalition." Alara allowed herself a small, tired smile. The galaxy was beginning to shift, slowly but surely. Other species, previously skeptical or indifferent, began sending messages of curiosity, tentative friendship, and cautious admiration. The first ripples of a new order were forming, and humanity was at its center. And yet there was no room for complacency. The Council would not ignore this affront forever. Powerful empires would see opportunity in humanity's isolation, and threats, both expected and unforeseen, lurked in the darkness beyond known space. Every decision, every deployment, every act of courage would be tested. Still, humanity moved forward. Not for conquest, not for glory, but because it was right. Because life mattered. Because promise mattered. Because for all the Council's bureaucracy and politics, no one could underestimate the force of a species that refused to compromise on principle. The galaxy had felt the first tremor when Earth left the Council. That tremor would grow into a quake, shaking the foundations of every empire, every coalition, and every species that had ever underestimated humans. And at the center of it all stood the humans themselves, small but unyielding, prepared to face whatever came next with courage, ingenuity, and an unbreakable will. The journey had begun, and the stars themselves seemed to lean closer, curious to watch what humanity would do next. The void of space stretched endlessly beyond the windows of the Aurora, speckled with distant suns and drifting starships. Captain Alara Voss stood at the helm, her gaze steady, her mind racing through countless possibilities. Leaving the Galactic Council had been a bold move, but the real challenge had only just begun. Without the Council's backing, Earth's colonies now depended entirely on human initiative. And yet, despite the weight of responsibility, there was an energy, a spark among humans that no alien coalition had ever witnessed before. In the command room, Lieutenant Rian Cortez, a young but experienced pilot, monitored the incoming communications. Every screen flickered with messages from scattered systems, some expressing fear at Earth's decision, others expressing hope. Traders, scientists, and even small governments from fringe territories sent offers of alliance. Humans were no longer just participants in galactic politics, they were leaders by action. "Captain," Ryan said, pointing to one screen, "we have a transmission from the Karathi fleet. They're ready to integrate with our defensive protocols and share navigational data on uncharted sectors. They're eager to leave Council influence behind." Alara's eyes brightened slightly. "Prepare a welcoming message. Let them know we value loyalty, not submission. We are building partnerships, not subjects." The Karathi, unlike most dominant civilizations, were small and often ignored. Yet their fleets were fast, and their knowledge of unpatrolled regions made them invaluable. Other fringe species, like the nomadic Solari and the peaceful herbalist Zalari, soon joined Earth's growing coalition. The galaxy had underestimated the humans for too long, and now humans proved that trust and compassion could form bonds stronger than treaties enforced by fear. As days passed, Earth's fleet began moving in precise formations, a mixture of military efficiency and humanitarian focus. Colonies once left to struggle were receiving supplies, repairs, and protection. Humans traveled across disputed sectors, sometimes bypassing Council territory entirely to deliver aid directly. Stories of their deeds spread like fire through communications networks. On worlds where humans landed, locals often remarked on a simple truth: humans cared more than most other species. Humans risked themselves not for profit or power, but for life itself. Not all reactions were positive. The Galactic Council watched with growing concern. Earth's defiance had sparked whispers of rebellion among smaller systems. Some larger species quietly discussed ways to curb humanity's influence. Fleet commanders warned of potential blockades, sabotage, and espionage. Yet for all their power, the Council struggled to understand humans. Where other species acted strategically, often with hesitation, humans acted decisively. Where others counted losses first, humans counted lives saved first. One evening, Ilara convened a strategy meeting with her senior officers. The table was filled with maps of contested territories, diagrams of hyperspace lanes, and projections of Council fleet movements. "We cannot anticipate everything," she said, her tone calm but firm. "The Council will test us. They may attempt to isolate us, cut off supplies, or challenge our authority, but we must continue to act as we have. Protect those who cannot defend themselves. Show them that humanity does not abandon allies." Commander Lyra Tan, a veteran tactician, nodded. "The Korathi scouts report that several Council patrols have altered their routes. It seems they are watching but not engaging yet." Ilara's gaze hardened. "Then we use this. We move forward with precision, but with openness. Let the galaxy see that we do not hide. Fear of confrontation will not guide us. Courage and principle will." Meanwhile, in the outer regions of the galaxy, humans and their new allies began coordinating complex supply lines. The Solari, masters of stealth navigation, guided convoys through sectors known for pirate activity. The Zalari provided medical teams skilled in healing diverse alien species. Even small traders who had been overlooked by the Council for centuries offered ships, information, and manpower. Every alliance strengthened the coalition, proving that cooperation could succeed where politics had failed. But humans were not naive. Every new partnership required trust and verification. Spies and opportunists lurked even in friendly fleets. Ryan reported a suspicious vessel shadowing a humanitarian convoy near the Veil Nebula. "They're not engaging," he said, "but their sensors match several Council warships we've encountered before." Ilara studied the readouts. "Then we observe. We don't need to attack unless necessary. Let them know that humanity acts with purpose but never recklessly. Our strength lies in clarity of action, not in fear." In the weeks that followed, the coalition's presence grew in influence and scale. Humans visited colonies where other species had abandoned hope. On Cerathus, the planet that had sparked Earth's departure from the Council, humans rebuilt the damaged infrastructure, trained local defenses, and shared knowledge of sustainable energy systems. Children who had witnessed fear and despair learned to smile again. Adults regained faith in the possibility of a secure future. The Council tried to spin the narrative in their favor. Propaganda spread across communication networks. Humans were reckless, dangerous, and unpredictable. Some species believed it, especially those still loyal to the old system. But the humans' actions spoke louder than words. Lives were being saved, colonies were thriving, and alliances were forming across sectors that had been politically invisible for centuries. Slowly, doubt crept into the minds of those who had once blindly followed the Council. In one of the newly allied worlds, a Korathi elder approached Ilara. "Your species is different," he said. "Other civilizations follow orders. Others calculate advantage. You act with a heart. That is why others listen to you." Ilara smiled, though her expression carried the weight of responsibility. "We do what is right, not what is easy. That is the human way. And we invite others to join us, not out of fear, but because they share our values." Not all humans agreed on the path forward. Some feared that leaving the Council had exposed them to dangers they could not yet predict. There were heated discussions on board the Aurora on whether to take defensive stances, to prepare for potential attacks, or to focus solely on humanitarian missions. Alara listened carefully, balancing caution with action. We will not act blindly, but we will not let fear dictate our choices. We move forward with our allies and with purpose. The first major test came sooner than expected. A cluster of Council-aligned fleets moved into a disputed sector near the Helios Rift. Intelligence suggested their intent was not yet hostile, but their movements were strategic, aimed at testing human responses and sowing doubt among new allies. Alara assembled a rapid response team. We will demonstrate our presence, she said. Not aggression, but vigilance. Let the galaxy see that humanity protects but does not provoke. The human-led fleet moved in formation, lights blinking in coordinated patterns across vast distances. Allies from Karathi and Solari ships matched their maneuvers, creating a display of discipline and coordination. When the Council observers saw the fleet, they hesitated. Humans had not attacked. Humans had not provoked. Humans had simply arrived, and their presence alone changed the balance of confidence in the sector. Reports spread quickly across nearby systems. Colonists, once fearful of Council indifference, now spoke openly of relief and hope. Traders, previously cautious, began negotiating directly with human-led convoys. Even species who had long believed humans were weak or inexperienced began re-evaluating their assumptions. For the first time in centuries, the notion that humans could be ignored was impossible. Alara watched the starry expanse from the bridge. Each new alliance, each act of aid, each decision rooted in principle rather than politics, created ripples that spread farther than anyone had predicted. Humanity had chosen a path of moral certainty, and the galaxy was beginning to bend, not by force but by example. Yet beneath the optimism, caution remained. The Council would not yield easily, and powerful empires were capable of striking in unexpected ways. The humans had proven they were different, but they also understood that their journey had only just begun. The rift between the Council and humanity had widened, and with it the potential for conflict, inspiration, and transformation grew. Humanity's coalition was not just about protection. It was a statement that life mattered, that courage mattered, and that principle mattered above convenience. As the fleets moved across the void, carrying hope to the edges of the galaxy, one truth became clear. Humans did not simply follow the stars, they shaped them. And in doing so, they began to change the galaxy itself. The void beyond the Helios Rift was quiet, almost deceptively so. Humans and their allies navigated through the dim starlight, scanning for any sign of Council interference. Captain Alara Voss stood on the bridge of the Aurora, her hands lightly resting on the railing. The galaxy had begun to take notice of humanity's growing coalition, and she knew the next encounter would test not only their strength, but their principles. Reports from Karathi scouts indicated an unusual energy signature near the fringe of uncharted space. It was faint, irregular, and unlike anything in known databases. Curiosity and caution mingled within the human crew. Alara knew that exploration had always been a hallmark of humanity. They did not simply avoid the unknown, they faced it, analyzed it, and learned from it. Captain, Lieutenant Rian Cortez said, pointing at the monitor. The signal seems to be coming from a derelict station. Sensors are picking up signs of life, though very weak. Alara's eyes narrowed. Prepare a landing team, she said. Take medics, engineers, and a small security detail. We proceed carefully, but we do not assume hostility. We will offer help first. As the shuttle descended toward the station, the crew could see its massive structure looming against the blackness of space. The station had once been a marvel of engineering, built by a civilization long forgotten, now abandoned and partially in ruins. Panels hung loose, lights flickered intermittently, and several docking bays had collapsed entirely. But there was life inside, however faint, and humanity had never ignored life before. When the landing team entered the station, the smell of decay and machinery filled the air. The corridors were dimly lit, with warning signs written in a language no human recognized. Yet the humans pressed on, guided by sensors that detected movement ahead. In a central chamber, They found the source of the weak signals, a small group of alien survivors, malnourished, frightened, and wary. Their skin shimmered with iridescence, and their eyes, large and reflective, studied the humans cautiously. One of the survivors stepped forward, trembling. Who are you?" the alien asked in halting galactic standard. "I am Captain Ilara Voss of Earth," she replied gently. "We are here to help. You are not alone." For a moment the survivors were silent. Their history had taught them to fear outsiders, and the humans were unknown entities, far from the Council's watchful eyes. Yet the sincerity in Ilara's voice, the steady confidence in her stance, and the absence of weapons aimed at them spoke volumes. Slowly the alien lowered its trembling arms. Medical teams immediately set to work. Humans trained to understand a wide variety of biology administered treatments tailored to the alien physiology. Engineers began repairing life support systems. Security officers remained vigilant, scanning for hidden dangers or traps, but found only fear and desperation. The aliens' gratitude was palpable, expressed not in words alone, but in gestures, nods, and quiet relief. As the humans worked, Ilara observed the station carefully. She noticed the presence of a dormant defense system, massive energy arrays designed to protect the station long ago. Although inactive now, they could be dangerous if activated accidentally. She sent a secure message to her engineers. "We need a full diagnostic. Do not touch anything without authorization. Safety first always." Meanwhile, the aliens began to speak of their history. Their civilization had been mighty once, stretching across multiple star systems, but they had faced an internal conflict, which, coupled with disease and external attacks, had brought them to the brink of extinction. They had abandoned most of their colonies and retreated to this hidden station, hoping that the galaxy would forget them entirely. Ilara listened, her expression one of solemn respect. "You are not forgotten," she said. "We will ensure that humanity does not leave others behind." The Council would have likely dismissed these aliens as insignificant, a minor species with no influence or value. Yet humans saw differently. To them, every life mattered and every species had potential. While some factions of the galaxy calculated advantage, humans calculated care. This fundamental difference was why so many were beginning to see humans as unpredictable and admirable. As the repairs progressed, sensors detected movement outside the station. Fleet readings showed a Council patrol approaching. It was unclear whether their intent was reconnaissance or confrontation, but the presence of human and alien cooperation had already altered the balance of perception in the sector. Ilara gathered her team. "We expected this," she said. "They are testing us. Do not provoke. Show them that humanity acts with integrity. We are here to protect, not to challenge unnecessarily." The Council patrol arrived, its ships imposing and heavily armed. Their presence was meant to intimidate, to remind humans that isolation had its consequences. But the humans did not retreat. Instead, they maintained formation around the station, their allied ships ready, not for attack, but for defense. A message came through the Council communications. "Cease operations in this sector. Withdraw immediately. You are in violation of Council protocols," Ilara replied calmly, her voice firm. "We are assisting beings in distress. We will not leave them vulnerable. Humanity does not abandon those in need. We do not seek conflict, but we will not yield to fear or coercion." The Council representatives paused, unsure of how to respond. Humans had not threatened, had not fired, and yet their words carried weight. Their actions spoke louder than any threat. Lives were being saved, and alliances were forming across species boundaries. For the first time, some Council officers realized that humanity's strength lay not in fleets or firepower, but in character and principle. The alien survivors watched the interactions with awe. They had expected humans to be weak, to bend under pressure. Instead, humans stood unwavering, willing to risk confrontation to protect the helpless. The lesson was clear. Humanity's courage was not measured by the weapons it carried, but by the risks it took to uphold its values. Days passed as repairs and medical assistance continued. Humans and allies worked tirelessly, coordinating supply lines, reinforcing life support systems, and restoring communications. Slowly, the station came back to life. Alien survivors began to rebuild not only their shelter but their hope. Children laughed where silence had reigned, Elders shared stories with renewed energy and trust began to grow. Alara reflected on the broader implications. Humanity's actions would echo far beyond the station. News of the rescue, once transmitted across galactic networks, would challenge the Council's narrative of control. Other neglected species, previously resigned to obscurity, would see that help could come from unexpected sources. Humanity's influence was spreading, not through domination but through compassion, courage, and the refusal to leave anyone behind. Yet Alara also knew that challenges were ahead. The Council would not forget this display, and powerful factions might act to undermine humanity's efforts. Diplomacy, vigilance, and strategy would be as crucial as bravery. Humanity's coalition was growing, but it remained vulnerable. Every decision carried consequences. One evening, as the station's lights flickered under the repaired systems, Alara stood on the observation deck. She watched human and alien workers collaborate in quiet harmony. Despite the uncertainty of the galaxy, despite the potential for confrontation, hope thrived here. Humanity had demonstrated that principles could be stronger than politics, that courage could outshine intimidation, and that compassion could unite species long divided by fear. A Karathi scout approached her. "Captain," it said, "your species is remarkable. Other civilizations rely on power or fear. You rely on values. That is why others will follow you, even when it is dangerous. That is why humanity cannot be ignored." Alara smiled faintly. "We do what is right. That is all we can do, and we invite others to do the same. Strength is measured not by domination, but by the lives we protect and the hope we inspire." As humans prepared to depart the station, fully restoring the survivors' home and providing them with long-term support, the Council's patrol remained at a distance. They watched, their own assumptions challenged, uncertain of how to respond to a species that had redefined what it meant to be powerful. Alara looked to the stars, sensing the vastness of the challenge ahead. The galaxy was shifting, slowly but inevitably, in ways that no one could predict. Humanity had encountered its first true test beyond the Council's politics, and they had succeeded. Not by force, but by principle. The ripple effects of this encounter would reach distant systems, inspiring some, worrying others, and challenging all. Humanity's coalition had grown, their alliances strengthened, and their reputation had begun to spread. Other civilizations now faced a new reality, a species that refused to bow to fear, that acted with courage and compassion, and that had the power to reshape the galaxy not by conquest, but by example. The encounter was over, yet the journey was far from complete. The Council had taken notice. Rival powers would observe, allies would look to humans for guidance, and throughout it all, humanity would continue to act as it always had, steadfast, principled, and determined to protect life wherever it was threatened. The galaxy was watching, and the humans had shown that they were more than observers. They were catalysts, they were protectors, and they were just beginning. The galaxy had begun to change, and the tremors caused by Earth's departure from the Council were becoming impossible to ignore. Humans and their allies had gained strength, credibility, and influence, yet with every achievement came new challenges. Powerful factions within the Council were restless, their patience waning. Where humans offered protection and aid, the Council saw defiance. Where humans acted with compassion, the Council feared disruption of the established order. Captain Alara Voss stood on the bridge of the Aurora, overlooking a convoy of Allied ships moving through contested space. Reports from scouts indicated an unusual concentration of Council-aligned fleets near the Andros cluster. It was more than mere observation. These fleets were positioning strategically, creating a blockade that threatened to isolate the colonies humans had sworn to protect. "We expected resistance," Alara said, her voice steady. "But this is more than caution. The Council is testing our resolve. They want to see if we will yield, or if we will act according to our principles." Commander Lyra Tun, standing beside her, frowned at the holographic display. "It's a significant force, Captain. If they decide to act aggressively, our coalition may be stretched thin. The Andros cluster is key to our supply lines. Losing it could set us back months." Alara's gaze hardened. "Then we make them understand that humanity does not compromise on lives. Our strategy is not to provoke, but to protect, and we will show them that strength lies not only in fleets, but in conviction and unity. Human engineers, medics, and diplomats worked alongside Korathi, Zelari and Zelari teams fortifying colonies in the cluster. They repaired damaged stations, reinforced defensive systems, and trained local populations in survival strategies. Every act of aid was a message. Humans would not abandon life, even in the face of overwhelming opposition. The first direct encounter came as expected. A council frigate entered the sector, its weapons systems activated and sensors scanning aggressively. Ilara called a fleet meeting, her voice calm but authoritative. "We do not initiate hostilities. Our mission is protection, not aggression. Engage only if necessary to defend life." The humans maintained formation, signaling their intent clearly. The council vessel hesitated, recognizing that these humans were unlike any other species they had faced. Where others might retreat under pressure, humans held firm, their actions deliberate and unwavering. The council sent a message through secure channels, their tone more demanding than before. "Withdraw immediately. Your actions violate council authority. Compliance is required to prevent escalation." Ilara responded without hesitation. "We are not violating authority. We are upholding life. If protecting the helpless is a violation, then humanity accepts that. We will not abandon those who cannot defend themselves." The council officers paused, realizing that words alone would not sway the humans. They began to appreciate, reluctantly, that human strength was not measured in firepower or political influence, but in courage, ingenuity, and unwavering principle. Despite the tension, humans did not act recklessly. Scouts monitored council movements, diplomatic channels remained open, and allies coordinated seamlessly. The Andros cluster's colonies were safe, reinforced, and fully operational. The council had anticipated fear and hesitation, but found only methodical resolve. Humanity's coalition demonstrated that courage, unity, and careful planning could match or even exceed conventional power. Meanwhile, whispers spread across distant sectors. Some smaller civilizations, previously loyal to the council out of habit or fear, began questioning their allegiance. If humans could defy the council and still protect life, why should other species submit blindly? The simple act of principle sparked curiosity, admiration, and even rebellion among the overlooked and marginalized. Not all humans were free from doubt. Discussions aboard the Aurora were often long and intense, balancing the need for action with caution. "We cannot underestimate the council," Lieutenant Rian Cortez reminded the officers during one planning session. "They have resources we cannot match. They could cut off supplies or manipulate allies against us." Ilara nodded. "We will not underestimate them, but we also will not compromise our values. Strength without principle is meaningless. Every decision we make must protect life and inspire trust." Then the unexpected happened. Sensors picked up a council strike group approaching a colony on the outskirts of the cluster. Their intent was clear: intimidate, isolate, and pressure humans into submission. Ilara immediately coordinated with allied ships, ensuring civilians were evacuated, defenses were reinforced, and escape routes secured. Humans moved with precision, calm in the face of danger, as if every act of preparation were a test of courage rather than power. The council ships opened communications with a stern warning: "Cease these actions or face consequences." "Withdraw or risk conflict," Ilara replied firmly. "We will not abandon innocent lives. Conflict is unnecessary if principles guide action. Humanity acts to protect, not to conquer. We ask only that you respect the right to life." The council officers were silent, unprepared for a response that refused both fear and aggression. Humans had not threatened, they had not provoked, but their steadfastness carried a weight no fleet could ignore. Lives were saved not by weapons, but by courage and careful planning. Alliances had been strengthened, morale among colonies had risen, and humans had demonstrated that principled action could alter the galaxy without firing a single shot. During the crisis, Ilara led a small team to the threatened colony, working alongside engineers, medics, and local volunteers. Every repaired life support system, every medical treatment, and every evacuation was a quiet victory against intimidation. The Council's forces maintained distance, aware that direct confrontation would tarnish their reputation and expose their limitations. By the time the crisis passed, the Andros cluster was secure. Colonies were thriving, civilians were safe, and humans had once again proven that they did not act for glory, profit, or power. They acted for life itself. The ripple effects reached farther than anticipated. Reports of human actions spread across the galaxy, inspiring both allies and independent worlds. Even factions previously loyal to the Council began to reconsider their positions. The narrative was clear. Humans could be counted on not because they were the strongest, but because they were principled, resourceful, and unyielding in their commitment to protect life. Alara reflected on the broader implications. Humanity's trial was not just in protecting colonies or facing the Council. It was in demonstrating that courage, ingenuity, and compassion could shift perceptions, alliances, and even entire political systems. Every act of bravery, every careful decision, every rescued life became part of a growing story that the galaxy could not ignore. In the quiet moments, Alara walked along the observation deck, watching stars drift by. She thought of the colonies, the allied fleets, and the countless lives humans had touched. The path ahead would be challenging. The Council would not yield easily, and rival factions could strike unpredictably. Yet humanity had proven a simple truth. Principle could be stronger than fear, and courage could inspire change. A Karathi officer approached her. "Captain," he said, "your people are remarkable. Others rely on power, intimidation, or manipulation. You rely on principle, and that is why the galaxy watches. That is why allies follow you." Alara smiled, though her expression carried the weight of responsibility. "We do not seek recognition," she said. "We seek to protect life, inspire trust, and uphold what is right." That is enough. The trial of humanity was far from over. The Council would continue to test, to threaten, and to challenge. But humans had shown that principle, courage, and careful action could meet any test. The galaxy had begun to shift subtly but undeniably toward a new order, one where life, trust, and unity mattered more than politics and fear. And humanity, small but unyielding, would continue to lead the way.